the members. Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to let you know, as Pastor Sam said, we're talking about billboards. We have Pastor Sam, who is going to be leading this effort through the Treasure Coast Christian Alliance. Also in the back, we have Brian Longworth. Most of you know him. He's with personhood.org. He's got some voter bags this evening. And standing next to him and right next to the yellow sign is Jim Tomo with 40 Days for Life. Jim is the guy that's on the front lines. He's out there on the sidewalk trying to get women and men to not go in and end the life of their child. If you look back there on that sign, you'll see that little frame standing there. That are a bunch of billboards. On there is a bunch of billboards that Ed Dackert, Mr. Ed Dackert, beautiful pro-life warrior. He's responsible for all of the billboards you see on 95 and the turnpike as you drive. There are some samples back there. You can see Pastor Sam. You can see Jim for deciding if you want to donate to put those towards those money to get these signs or these billboards up. Well, I appreciate you coming. I want to start by saying that whatever you hear me say in the next several minutes, I don't want you to hear any condemnation for anyone in this room who might have abortion in their past. I don't want you to hear that. First, that would be really hypocritical on my part, since I supported and paid for an abortion some 45 years ago. Second, I want you to know if that's you, there is forgiveness, there is hope, and there is restoration for that sin, the same as there is for any other. There is redemption so full that God can take such great failure and use it to free others and further his kingdom. If that's you, see me privately. Get one of my business cards. I'll have them back there on the table. Call me. I want to talk to you. If you're a lady, I'll refer you to somebody, Karen, who can help you walk through that process. If you're a man, I want to help see you redeemed from that and set free. Okay? I also want to say that I recognize that not everyone in this room may agree with me on all matters of faith or religion. I can respect that. I can respect that some of you don't agree with me. I know I can do the same for you. I am a follower of Jesus. At another time, I'd be very happy to share with you why I believe that God, the God of the Bible is God, that Jesus is in fact God the Son incarnate, and to share with you why everyone should surrender their life to Jesus. We would all want to note that to be pro-life and against abortions, one not need be a Christian, one not need hold any particular faith. In fact, there are atheists who are adamantly pro-life. But being a Christian, I'm going to dig in where I think we all must begin, and that's with the truth from God's Word. God said in his Word, "Thou shalt not kill." That word specifically there refers to the intentional killing of someone who is innocent to us. We as individuals do not get to unjustly take the life of another. Proverbs 24 says the following: "Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter." If you say, "Behold, we did not know this," does not he who weighs your heart perceive it? Does not he who keeps watch over your soul know it? And will he not repay man according to his work? Here at Proverbs, the wise follower is told to rescue those being led to slaughter. He's told that God sees the actions and the hearts of those who fail to do this. In Leviticus 20, God is speaking to his people about the sacrifice to the god Moloch. People used to take their children so they could get favor from their god Moloch and kill them. God tells Israel that if they catch someone sacrificing their child to Moloch, they're to stone them to death. But God goes one step further. He says that he will hold the one who knows about this sacrifice occurring and does nothing. He says, I will cut them off. I will hold them equally guilty. One of the reasons God sent his people Israel into judgment was their failure to defend the innocent from injustice. God reserves some of his harshest judgments for people and nations who mistreat the innocent. Jesus himself said the following about those who act harmfully towards children. In Luke 17:2-3, he said, if he were thrown, the man harming the children, if he were thrown into the sea with a huge rock tied around his neck, he would still be far better off than facing the judgment in store for those who harm these little children's souls. And he ends that by saying, I am warning you. That's Jesus. In Micah 6:8, God gives the bedrock for anyone who wants to be in a relationship with him. He says the following, he says, he has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Other versions say, do justice, love mercy. Certainly defending the most innocent and defenseless among us, our neighbors who can't speak for themselves. Surely that's justice and mercy. Being salt and light in culture means many things. It must include speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves. I want to share some Florida statistics with you from last year regarding abortion. 84,052 abortions were reported in Florida in 2023. This is up 2% over the previous year. I want you to remember that this is reported abortions only, given the fact that most of the abortions being done are done by the pill in the privacy of the home. You can just guess that it's much, much higher than this. Of that, 55% were medical or pill abortions. That's just what I mentioned. 62% of the abortions performed were done on women from under 20 years old to 29 years old. 34% were done on women from 30 to 39 years old. 49% of the abortions were done on Caucasian women. 36 abortions were done on Black or African American women. But I want you to recognize that Black or African Americans make up 14.3% of the population. What a Holocaust is happening in the African American community. 71% of the abortions were elective. What that means is this is not a have to, this is a choose to. I don't want you to miss these next statistic. 23% of the remaining cited economic reasons. 3% reported emotional or mental health as their reason. 2% reported some area of physical health. And 0.3% were reported for risk to the mom's life, and 0.1% for rape or incest. I want you to recognize that even in these hard cases, we still have to ask a question. And the question is intentionally ending the life of the child in the womb the necessary solution for the problem that mom faces? I want you to note something else. Those who promote Amendment 4 and abortion, they will take the 2.4% that I just listed from the last three categories, and they will attempt to justify the other 98.6 by citing that 2.4. Now, you know our state has done some good things. In the last year, the legislature has made abortion illegal after 6 weeks. This is a decision for justice and mercy. But I want you to understand that that means we've told women that they can kill their unborn child up to 6 weeks. What needs to happen in Florida is abortion needs to be abolished altogether. At the same time as all of these wonderful things that are happening, there's an amendment on the ballot this November that would undo all of this. And it would make abortion a right at any point in pregnancy. I want to ask you a question. Can there be a right to do something so wrong? I want to briefly go over Amendment 4. Hopefully by now you've all seen copies of it. I have copies back there. There's one laying here somewhere. And hopefully you've read the text. But before we do, I want to talk to you about Amendment 10. Amendment 10 was passed back in 2002, and it is in the Florida State Constitution. This Amendment 10 dealt with how we are supposed to treat pregnant pigs. The summary of this amendment contains 75 words. The full text of the amendment fills a whole page. It contains more than 500 words. That amendment gives specific explanations, specific definitions of terms, lists the limitations to the amendment, and connects the amendment to the Florida statute for enforcement. By contrast, the full text of Amendment 4 contains 56 words. There are no explanations. There is no definition of terms. There are no limitations on the amendment. There is one reference to Section 23 of the Florida Constitution that deals with privacy. And all that does is make Amendment 4 more vague, not less. Amendment 4 was not proposed by the legislature of Florida or any government entities. You see, the voters had already made their wishes known through their representatives. Amendment 4 was proposed by a political committee funded by Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and the George Soros-sponsored Copeland Society Fund. That group paid $15 million to out-of-state petition gatherers to put Amendment 4 on Florida's ballot. To date, they have spent well over $50 million to get it passed, according to T.E.A. That is 10 times more than we have spent. So how would we overturn Florida existing laws by Amendment 4? Here's a quick explanation. First, Florida's Constitution supersedes Florida's laws. Amendment 4 adds a section to the Constitution. If passed, it governs all of Florida's citizens and all of Florida's government. No state law, regulation, or court action could undo or even limit what this amendment cements into the Constitution. A few of Florida's common sense laws that could be wiped away by Amendment 4 include parental consent for a minor's abortion, laws requiring a physician's involvement prior to an abortion, and laws that prevent taxpayer funding of abortion. Since these are state laws and Amendment 4 would be in the Constitution, they would be swept away by Amendment 4, and this would have devastating implications on the health and safety of women in Florida, not to mention what happens to the unborn. Any and all limitations on abortion would be stricken down. Even legislation and laws that are designed to protect the mother would be removed. Abortion would be deemed a right. I'm going to say this twice tonight. I want you to remember, if something is a right, the state must protect and provide for it. Terms like viability or patient's needs and health are not defined. No doctor is needed. We have a list of everybody who could approve an abortion. Podiatrists, dentists, social workers are just some of the people considered to be medical providers in Florida. I want you to understand something. My chiropractor's assistant or receptionist could determine that a 14-year-old's emotional health required an abortion at 7 months gestation. That's what this amendment would do. No documentation of how the determination is made that she needs an abortion, like it is with the exception that we have in Florida's current law, which gives a doctor the ability to deem that, but it removes the requirement for any documentation. This means that the current requirements could be done away with, since this is amendment. Currently, parents have to be notified and give their consent before their minor child can have an abortion. The problem with Amendment 4 is nothing. It says it doesn't remove the consent portion. Nothing says anything about notifying as to when. Just prior. Prior means an email while she's in the office.
Good.
All right. It should be noted to you that 2/3 of those surveyed said, that's 2/3 of everyone that were surveyed said there should be some restrictions on abortion, and this includes pro-choice people. Only a single-digit minority thought abortion should be available with no restrictions at all. Amendment 4 removes every restriction. It makes it almost impossible to pass any future restrictions or protections for the unborn or their mothers, and it robs all rights from fathers. I want to briefly, since I just mentioned rights, I want to briefly discuss with you the idea of a right, since that's what this amendment would establish. Our founders took great care to define this term. They began with a foundational idea that we all have rights given to us by our Creator because we are made in the image of our Creator. We are created equal, and we all have inalienable rights because of our nature, who we are and who He is. The first of these is the right to life. Then there was liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Originally, the last one was property. This means that private property is critical to the pursuit of happiness. But you know what? Without the right to life, no other right matters. Do you know that the 14th Amendment requires that the government give equal protection under the law? If we can pay face by a pregnancy. So, we vote no on 4. We get informed, we stand, and we encourage others to do the same. For the rest of my time, I want to help you be able to stand. Standing for life on this issue requires the need to defend our belief that abortion is a moral wrong. We'll need to be able to give an answer when we're challenged regarding our view. The pro-life message is true. It is the truth. When delivered, it is always a winning message. So for the rest of the time, I'm going to focus on how we deliver it. We won't have time to dig too deep, but hopefully I'll be able to do that with some of you again. I'm willing to. I want to recommend a book to you. It's called The Case for Life by Scott Klusendorf. Much of what I'm going to say is going to come directly out of this book and writings that he has done. I was at an event last summer, and young people were walking around getting petitions signed. The petitions were to get Amendment 4 on the ballot. I engaged them about abortion, pointing out what it actually is. Rather than trying to respond to what I was saying, they immediately said, what about rape and incest? What about the life of the mother? Why did they say that? Because they were trained. Part of that $15 million that was spent, they were trained to do this. And why were they trained to do that first? Because these very terrible, very rare, and very emotional issues are presented to you and I as pro-life people to get us off the central issue of abortion. When they raise those issues, most of us go, because we don't know how to respond. I want to help you with that. If you're talking about abortion, there is a single central question. And that question is, what are the unborn? If the unborn are simply clumps of cell or simple reproductive tissue, then disposing of them should not be an issue. But if the unborn are unique, whole, living, individual human beings, then intentionally killing them cannot be justified by anything. And if these human individuals are innocent persons, like you and me, then the intentional killing of them becomes a huge issue. We can answer the question with science, and we can answer it with reason. I want to give you a definition of what the unborn are, based upon science and reason. At conception, when sperm meets egg, a new, unique, living, whole, innocent, defenseless, individual human being begins his or her life. There is no difference between them and us in who and what they are, and they are persons. I want to give you a quote from a textbook that represents the scientific research on the unborn. This quote comes from The Developing Human, Clinically Oriented Embryology, 7th edition, Philadelphia, PA, Saunders, from 2003, pages 16. Human life begins at fertilization, the process during which the male gamete or spermatozoa unites with the female gamete or oocyte ovum to form a single cell called a zygote. This highly specialized, totipotent cell marked the beginning of each of us as a unique individual. A zygote is the beginning of a new human being. That's not a preacher. That's just a guy writing textbooks to teach doctors. A study was done by a university student who asked biologists to represent all sides of the issue and all faiths, and done it all. He asked them when human life begins. 96% of those responding said the same thing as the quote above. The unborn are alive. They grow. They process nutrients. They use oxygen. The unborn are unique individuals. They possess their own human DNA, which never existed before and will never exist again. That DNA governs their development. That's what it means to be totipotent. That means everything that they do to govern as develop as a human being is governed by their genetic code. All they need to do is be left unmolested. The unborn human cannot be anything other than human. You would think that is common sense, but it's just not. The unborn are whole, and I've already made mention of this. What that means is that nothing outside of them and their DNA is necessary to make them who and what they are. Nothing gets added to them to make them a human individual. They govern their own development. This is what we know from science. Here's what we know from reasoning and thinking. The unborn are innocent. What I mean by that, think about this, they make no choices about anything. They have no power over their presence or the needs that they have. They are exactly where they should be, doing precisely what they should be doing based on who and what they are. They are defenseless. They are totally dependent on their mother, and she is responsible for them by any meaning of that word. They are persons. Now, this one has a big debate. I just want to tell you, real simple, we could talk more about this at another time. Other people, other you and me's, other you and I's, don't get to decide which humans are and are not persons. In fact, if you look at history, we tried doing this with things like slavery and the Holocaust. And those resulted in horrible and heinous things. The only good and coherent standard to use for personhood is what we all have in common. We're all human beings made in the image of God. Mm-hmm. There has never been a human being who is not a person. And every person on earth is a human being. Any other standard ends up being arbitrary. And any standard other than our shared humanity can be used to deny you and I personhood. Again, we got history to illustrate the disastrous results. Most of the time, people supporting abortion are going to try to point out some difference between the born and the unborn that somehow makes it justified in killing them. Their goal is to make the unborn less human. But none of the differences between the born and the unborn, between us and them, make them a different kind of thing than we are. And none of the differences can be used to make them less human or less a person. All of the differences that you will hear cited by people will fall into one of four categories. And in order to remember them, you remember the word sled. The S in sled stands for size. Some may say that a fetus is not human because it's so tiny. 5 weeks is like that, and not as big around as my finger. However, we don't place value on size when someone's outside of the womb, do we? A child's smaller than an adult, and yet it's a crime to harm a child. A person's innate value is not determined by their size. Often in society, it's actually those who are smaller who receive a more significant level of protection. Toddlers are smaller than teens or adults. We can't kill them. Therefore, we can't kill the unborn. The L in SLED stands for level of development. It may be said that the fetus is not alive because it's not fully developed. They don't have consciousness. They don't have this or they don't have that. However, human beings are in a constant state of development. Some of us in this room are still developing. A person outside of the womb goes through various stages throughout their life of cognition, behavior, psychology, and more. To devalue the unborn because of their level of development is simply hypocritical. We do not develop into human beings. We develop as human beings from conceptions. Toddlers are less developed than teens. If we cannot kill them, we cannot kill the unborn. The E stands for environment. It may be said that a fetus is not alive because it's located in the environment of the uterus. My body, my choice. That argument stands on this. Because the fetus does not exist in the outside world as we know it, some believe that his or her value is somehow diminished. However, this argument does not apply to adults. Why? We transfer from one environment to another multiple times a day, and yet each environment plays no role in our value. The same can be said of the unborn. The environment of the womb does not impact the value of the human being in it. He or she is none less human in a uterus than they are in a crib. Arguments about viability get connected to this. People will attempt to say that because the unborn cannot survive outside the womb, we can kill them. I want you to understand something. A child in the womb or in Dallas Children's Hospital may be very valuable at one point in his or her life. That same child in a less developed nation is far less valuable. You and I cannot survive without the help of others. I hope you recognize that. You depend on people acting a certain way every day for you to survive. If you don't believe me, think about it the next time you pull up to a four-way stop sign.
So that is the...
All human beings are fully human persons, and none can or should be intentionally killed. That someone may not be able to survive on their own cannot be justification for intentionally killing them. The D is degree of dependency. It may be said that a fetus is not a life because it is entirely dependent upon its mother's body for sustenance. However, at various stages of life outside the womb, humans are also dependent upon others. I just mentioned this. Those with medical conditions, young children, the elderly can find themselves reliant on another person for their health and well-being. Are these lives any less valuable because of their dependency? No. The same is true for the unborn. If we cannot kill an infant or a toddler or you and me for the reasons that are being offered, then we cannot kill the unborn for those reasons. So, we looked at what the unborn is. The next important thing is to keep the main thing. The main thing. We've just described what unborn are. They're human beings. We need to have a good way of thinking about this, something to put in our brains that when we're having this discussion with somebody who is supportive of abortion, that keeps us focused on what we do. A good way to do that is to present a simple argument. Here's the argument. It is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Abortion is the intentional killing of an innocent human being. Therefore, abortion is wrong. The big word for that is syllogism, and we do it every day on many things. We add 2 or 3 reasons for why an idea is true, and then we make a conclusion based on those 2 or 3 truths. Here's an example. I want my wife to be happy. Cleaning the kitchen for her makes her happy, therefore I will clean the kitchen.
See.
If someone is going to argue against this, they have to do a couple of things. They will have to first show how one of the 2 first statements is not true. Or they will have to show why the conclusion I make doesn't come from the 2 statements, or how it's wrong. So, someone would have to present evidence that it is not morally wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Or they have to show that abortion is not this killing, that the unborn are not human beings, or that they are not innocent. Or they would have to show that even though those things are true, abortion is still not morally wrong. Feelings about the issue, whether pro-life or pro-choice, can't overcome this. Objective facts and truth, like what we looked at earlier, have to be what's presented. Saying that we don't like it is not enough. I'm not against abortion because I don't like it. Saying that we feel strongly is not enough. Saying that what someone personally prefers is not enough to make it true or right or good for everyone. Truth is what is enough. And all truth, including moral truth, is objective and doesn't come from you and me. It is an out there standard that we recognize. Truth is always absolute. That means it's always true for everyone at all times. And truth is always exclusive. Anything that's the opposite of truth can't be true. We can give true reasons why abortion is wrong based on who the unborn are and based on God's nature and character. We don't think it's wrong because of what we personally think or how we feel about it. Abortion is always wrong because it is the intentional killing of an innocent human person made in the image of God. Even if someone rejects God, they still have to answer the rest. Well, see, when, not if, because we engage in talking about the amendment or standing for the unborn, we stick to the main thing. I want to give you some examples of things you'll encounter for a couple of minutes. Someone may say that the unborn are a clump of cells. Our response can be, yes, they are. So am I. So are you. If you mean they're smaller or less developed, I agree. But these things do not make them less human. You and I did not come from an embryo or a fetus. We once were these things. We cannot kill innocent human beings for being smaller or less developed than we are. Someone might say the unborn can't feel pain or are not conscious or have no life experiences. True. These things come as a part of everyone's human development. Many people can't feel pain. Some people are far more conscious of the world around them than others. The unborn do have experiences. They just have fewer, and they probably won't remember them. Infants and toddlers have far less of these things or abilities than an adult. They are no less human. We cannot kill them for this reason. Here are a couple more difficult things. But even these cases get addressed if we keep the main thing the main thing. What about rape and incest? I told you the percentage they're impacted, but we can't just spout off the fact that 0.1% of abortions come from rape or incest. Why? Because that makes us look like monsters.
What? Please.
We can tell truth. We don't want to allow the other people to shut us down because it's an emotionally or morally charged issue. Great care has to be taken to not be callous or uncaring. We have to clearly state how evil rape is and why. We have to genuinely talk about the victim and her needs. We have to display genuine moral outrage at the rapist. Rape is the violation of the human, God-given rights of an innocent person. Think about that. The person guilty of rape should get serious and severe human justice. Apart from grace and repentance, they will face God's wrath for their sin. You see, the rapist forces his victim into one of three very difficult choices. She can carry and parent the child she did not want and may not be in a position to mother. She can carry the child to term and then place the child for adoption, another difficult choice, or she can pay someone to kill her child or provide her with the drugs to do it herself. We must show compassion to the victim and offer all we can to help her. But we got to work towards swift and severe punishment for the rapist. But the child conceived in rape is an innocent the same way its mother or her mother was an innocent. They made no choice. They are just being and doing what they are supposed to be and do, even though they were conceived in rape. We cannot kill the innocent child because of what his or her father did. We offer any and all support to mom, helping her through this horrible thing. But we cannot answer one horrible thing that was done to her by getting her to do another horrible thing by killing her innocent child. Some might argue that the child would be a reminder of rape and that trauma. This might very well be the case. No other should be helped through this with everything we can bring to her. What if the child was born, though? Could the mother kill her infant and toddler because that child reminded her of rape? No. Why? Because the child is an innocent human person. If we can't kill the child conceived in rape after birth, we can't kill them before birth just because of what their father did. A sad and horrible thing is that some people will use this, as I said earlier, to justify all abortion for any reason. They will point to the horrible and rare case and further use the rape victim as a tool to promote elective abortion. If you encounter someone like this, you ask them, if we were to agree that abortion is a moral thing in the 0.2% of cases where rape is the issue, would you then stand in defense of the innocent unborn in the 99.8% of the rest of the cases? Their answer to that question will tell you how truly concerned they are about the rape victim. Some people would say, what about the life of the mother? Women are amazing. I encounter them and their partners at CareNet every day, and they're incredible people. They often face great difficulties in carrying and giving birth. We have to genuinely recognize, honor, and support women in every way we can. Places like CareNet do this, and here's a little plug. You need to support, volunteer at, pray for, and donate to places like CareNet. We're on the front lines rescuing men and women and unborn children. There are times when far greater supports available the normal risks are faced by the mom. These are causes for prayer and far greater support. They're also very uncommon. In many to most cases, the doctor can treat the mom and still preserve the life of the child. Listen to this. Deaths due directly to pregnancy are less than 23 per 100,000 live births. We grieve those 23 per 100,000, but we cannot use these sad deaths to justify intentionally killing the unborn for any reason in every other case. When a direct threat to mom's life is present, and the doctor and the child cannot yet survive out of the womb, both will die if nothing is done. The doctor has two patients, and he or she is faced with the decision that they must save the patient they can save. The death of the unborn child is not the intent of the doctor, but is a sad outcome. In the case where the child is viable and the mother needs treatment, the child can be delivered and treatment for the mother continued. Again, if the treatment would result in the death of the child, it's a sad and unintended consequence. These are not elective abortions like what Amendment 4 wants to pass. And they are not what we want to choose. There are no cases, and I've challenged people on this, there are no cases where the intentional killing of the unborn child is a necessary treatment. There are no laws in Florida or any other state that would prohibit a doctor from acting in such a way to save the woman. In fact, most laws in every state give the doctor a lot of leeway in how he or she makes the decision. Again, you look at them and say, if we grant that abortion is a moral thing in these very rare circumstances you present, would you then stand in defense of the innocent unborn and all the other cases? Their answer will tell you they're true voters. Here's a big one. What about bodily autonomy? My body, my choice. The idea is that the woman is completely sovereign over her body or whatever is in it. This is another emotionally charged objection because the pro-life person gets accused of taking away some right that a woman had. That is the basis for the promotion of Amendment 4, is that they want to protect the woman's right to bodily autonomy, her reproductive rights. None of us, not you, not me, not the pregnant woman, has absolute bodily autonomy. The idea of autonomy that the founders gave, if there's any idea in it, is that we can refuse things being done to us rather than us getting to do whatever we want with our bodies. It gets all twisted. None of us can choose to use our bodies to intentionally harm or kill another innocent human being. And all of us depend on everybody else to one degree or another. And each of us has duties to the others around us. These relationships require us to do and not do a whole bunch of things with our bodies and lives. The unborn human being did not take some action to be in the womb of his or her mother. He or she is naturally present and doing exact child temporarily at this stage of his or her life. Saying that a mother should be able to kill her child because she does not want to provide the necessary care that only she can provide is not a natural or human right. And in fact, it is an inhuman view. According to Gallup, 72% of pro-choice people support some restrictions on abortion. I'll ask you a question. If women have full bodily autonomy, then any restrictions on abortion should be wrong. In fact, if we have bodily autonomy, then any restrictions on anything she does or we do with our bodies should be wrong. Ask, why do you think 72% of pro-choice people support some restrictions on abortions? Then ask them, why should there be any if women have bodily autonomy? We can ask them, if we all have bodily autonomy, then why are there any laws at all governing anyone's behavior? The answer would be because we have laws and restrictions on our bodies because we want to protect innocent others. The unborn are living, innocent human beings. Abortion kills them. We keep the main thing. We extend the same protection to the unborn that their mothers enjoy against being intentionally killed. Not special rights, the same rights. Some would say the mother should be able to refuse support to the child in the womb. They couch abortion as a refusal of support. Two things can be said, three actually. Abortion is not the refusal of care. It is an intentional act of killing. Parents have a duty to provide care and protection for their children. We uphold that duty in every other case. If the mother of a born child refused to provide the necessary care for her child and the child died, she would be guilty of criminal neglect. The womb is the place where that necessary care happens at that point in life. Finally, the relationship between mother and unborn child is unlike any other human relationship. Specific needs and duties in pregnancies do not exist in other relationships, and the rules that we have for other relationships, they can't be applied to this situation. Pro-life people don't want to force women to stay pregnant. They want to protect the life of the unborn children. Killing the innocent can never be an option for anyone. Removing that option does not force anyone to do anything. Laws against theft or human trafficking do not force things on thieves and traffickers. They protect innocent others from thieves and traffickers. Laws against abortion are like laws against killing an infant or toddler. They protect the innocent child from being intentionally killed. I want to tell you, we just spent 15 minutes on this. There's no way exhausted. There's so much more going on. There's going to be emotionally charged wording in our arguments, because this is a charge. But when we're talking, we got to be calm. We got to be passionate. And we got to be reasonable. So what can you do? Pray. Why? Because when God's faithful people cry out in unison, power is unleashed. And listen to this, God often equips and emboldens the prayer to become the advocate. So pray. Second, inform yourself. Learn the things, some of the things that we talked to tonight. If you want these, take my card. I'll put it in a form that I can email it to you. Get this book. Avail yourself of the opportunities and resources that are out there. Prepare yourself. Be ready to engage in the discussion. Then speak. And I don't mean speak when the opportunity arises. You make this part of your conversations in all of the circles that you are in. Between now and November, everyone you know needs to hear your arguments why Amendment 4 cannot pass. You bring up the issue. If you're a part of a local church, make sure that your pastor speaks out. I was in an office the other day, 3 people in our office representing 3 sizable churches in our area. None of those individuals knew about Amendment 4. If you're in a local church, you've got to tell your pastor and your elders. Grab the images off some of the websites from some of these resources back there. Make them a primary pick on your social media. Write a letter to the editor. Contact your representatives. Tell them to speak out for life. Doing nothing cannot be an option for us. Why? Because God has commanded us to defend those being led away to slaughter. And I have to tell you, as Jesus warned those people, I have to warn you and I that God will hold us accountable if we do nothing. If we act and speak and engage, and those who name the name of Christ, who embrace conservative principles, if we all act and speak and vote, this amendment will fail. If we don't, killing the innocent will become a right. Again, nothing so heinous can be right or right. I know I didn't sound cold and clinical. If anything, I'm incredibly passionate about caring for moms and dads and children. I see firsthand the horror of abortion on all 3. I've seen the brokenness in the lives of moms and dads and grandparents and siblings that abortion causes. Because of who they are and who God is, all I want of us is to be able to defend and protect all 3 of those people. I want us to stand in the culture for what is right and good and fight against this evil, because that's what it is. I recognize clearly from Scripture and history that if this passes, Florida will be inviting the judgment of God on our state.
Exactly.
And I will stand here before you in 10 years and point out how God's judgment has fallen on us. I want his blessing on our state. I want us to be equipped to tell our friends and family why Amendment 4 cannot pass. And I want us to be able to do all of that with compassion, speaking the truth in love. I want to take a couple minutes. If you have no questions, great. If you do, I'll take them. I want you to know you can get my card and I'll give you some resources. Yes, dear.
I'm kind of write a letter to the editor, Tom, so I could, but, you said you had a card.
I have a business card, and if you want, you send me an email. I will send you back at least a framework of some things that you can say in your own words.
And,
Yes.
so what happened in Ohio is, as a because of the church there, voted for in it. Right? So they only do the work that we're doing now that's for, right?
They didn't do the work that they're doing. They didn't pay attention. But it's not just all their fault. I'm not going to say, well, you Christians are just dummies. They did the same thing that this Amendment 4 does. They wrote it in such a term that was designed to say, we're protecting the rights of women. They're taking away your reproductive right. By the way, a little aside, no one's taking away any woman's right to reproduction. Women have the right to when they can reproduce. They can decide who to reproduce with, except in the rare cases, when they do, how many times they do. Once conception occurs, reproduction has occurred.
Yes.
Okay? So there's no right against women reproducing. The argument is that you can't kill the child once reproduction has occurred. What else? Yes?
Right.
I would suggest your scientists that ways embrace the science because the science stats of their foods are unfit. And the case thought it was designed because partly that they actually occur on similar thought. So the water theories of John Oxidants as I focus they read books are sound rather than abortion from a Phoenix train. Those 15-week with the knowledge of get up to the child actually attack the instruments and walking at that fight. And mostly wait for that. So there's a fight like a city that these unborn children made so that their daughters were to unborn child in the other areas. And the atmosphere even such as more points is that that's what brought it curiosity the justice that Christians only about 50% of actual participants and 50% that was registered only about active and votes are in it. So from starting out, this was there. So we can combat these two things of reconcile the science with cards or views, share with T.E.A. residents.
I would agree. The issue is about believing the science and resting on the science. The science is irrefutable. And I will tell you this, the people that I talk to that are pro-choice and are supporting Amendment 4, they will no longer argue about the science. They will grant that the human being, the unborn human beings, they even grant that they're persons. They will then go to the other arguments, rape, incest, life of the mother, or it's my body, my choice. It's a human being. I can still kill it. But yes, know the science. That's part of what I want you to do is know the science.
We have Travis this week, having launched a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and heard some following that was done of Christians, and they read the 217 amendments, and then will you vote for it or against it? And over 60% of the Christians said they would vote for it. What is this? Because it's so deceptive. It is so deceptive. And the reason for this is that the reason that this may give for this is the title is Amendment to Limit Government Interference with Abortion. So to use that term, limit government interference, we as Tea Party people, that's our big thing, is we want to limit government interference. So they're pulling that stand with that. So there's all these different ways of putting this there. So my question to you, and I have not seen this. I have not seen a list of, and I just wrote like 10 things here that are things that somebody will say who either hasn't, doesn't understand it, or is against it, and what do we answer to them? And that's what we need. Each one of us has to have that list so that when somebody says something to us, we know how to respond. And you see it?
Yeah, I would say this. There are these back on the table. There's two different ones of these. And what they do, you see that they underline in red some of the things that Amendment 4 says. But the point I'm trying to make with this here is that we don't necessarily have to be pro-life apologetics. We have to point out why this is extreme. This is too extreme even for a pro-choice person, because it removes the need for a doctor. It removes the need for verifying any need at all. It means that some woman could simply say, I have this problem, I'm too stressed. And her therapist, who is a healthcare provider, can say, I know you're 6 months pregnant, but let's get you an abortion.
Then stop.
Okay. I want to ask you a question. When they say no government interference, people hate when you do this, and it's a very viable thing to do. Transport yourself back to 19th century antebellum South as a Christian, as a person, and say somebody comes to your door and wants you to support a constitutional amendment in Mississippi to prevent government interference in the slave trade.
You're cursed.
Are you going to say, oh, I'm for limited government?
Right.
No. That's why we understand who the unborn are and what this amendment does. We want government. As a matter of fact, it is the job of the state to protect the innocent and uphold justice for everyone. That's their job. So yes, should we have no government interference for rape or murder? No. How about human trafficking? No. How about fraud? No. How about libel and slander? No. We want the government to interfere in things that harm other people. So we want the government to interfere in this. Who else? Somebody else?
It's kind of a relevant question, but will the state be forced to fund abortions in the forecast?
If it becomes a right that the government has a responsibility, or could be argued to have a responsibility to provide means and money and protection for a right.
This is 19 years old. And if you, I'm just not sure, I need clarification. They say that you don't need a doctor, just a medical personnel to influence or prescribe or whatever. But can other medical personnel actually do the abortion? Because I was getting two different messages I didn't realize these. And I'm just saying, anybody can just, maybe they will make it, but it's fine.
I'm reasonably certain that you would still be required to have the proper medical training and license to perform a medical procedure like a second or third term. Brian has a word on this. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the amendment says no restrictions. So, no restrictions is no restriction. That means good permanent abortion.
And so, the problem is that there's pill damage that they can get. So somebody calls themselves healthcare provider to start handing out these abortion pills.
Yeah, I want you to know that even if Amendment 4 does not pass, and we do not believe it will,
So,
I went online and I could order 3 doses of the abortion pill from a clinic in Massachusetts with no medical doctor, no medical appointment. Just give them my credit card, and 2 days later, those pills would be in my mailbox. Okay? So even if Amendment 4 passes, that's the next fight that we'll have to fight. Yes?
Amendment 4 with no restriction. You said 7 months. How about 9 months?
Day of birth.
Hey, there's still
No restrictions means no restrictions.
None. Yep.
Anything else?
So that's how.
Yes.
Yeah, I went to jail about 5 years ago. I used to jail that without this animal was saying, wasn't in jail. I saw a video of how the commercial took place done by medical being. And up to a certain point, they actually use a vacuum cleaner to vacuum out.
It's stronger than a household vacuum cleaner.
Yes, it's very vacuum cleaner. And I saw that immigrant fighting for his life. That's what made my island.
I agree, and that's a very vital and very valuable thing to do. But we have to remember that the response coming back from the person supporting Amendment 4 is the vast majority of abortions happen prior to that point. The abortion pill can be taken up to 10 weeks. And they are, believe me, they are prescribing and giving it to women after 10 weeks and just telling them, well, take 2, take 3. But the vast majority, we can use that, but the vast majority of abortions are happening before that.
If there are restrictions put on, and this with this amendment, how productive are we going to be against the bill?
Well, that's the next battle that we'll have to fight.
Because, yeah, you were saying that you could get the pills online. I mean, these people are free to do this. Would we have to fight against that?
I have a belief that we should, but when it comes down to anything, we cannot stop the human heart from doing what the human heart does.
Right.
All we can do is put laws in place to say that this is an illegal thing to do, and you cannot do it, and we can pursue those who manufacture the drugs and put strict regulations on them, that ultimately, just like all the other things that the human heart does, if the human heart wants to do a thing, they're going to do a thing. The best thing that you can do in those cases is support places like CareNet.
And
Make sure that CareNet has every resource they need to advertise, to get their name out, to have name recognition, to be there. Do you know how many people? Do you know how many people don't know about CareNet in St. Lucie County? It's absolutely shocking how many people don't know about us. The best medicine in cases like this is make sure that the message of CareNet, that the caring, the love that CareNet offers, the support that CareNet offers to their clients becomes so well known and so well funded that we are the place where women turn when they're pregnant. Because we provide hope.
Mm-hmm.
People get abortions because of what they are not, what they do not have, or what they think they cannot do. We specialize in telling them who they really are, what they are able to do, and what they actually do have as resources. That's the best response to that is support places like CareNet.
Okay.
What else?
Yep.
Yes.
If I being the public will see more than level 40, that I don't think they're. I'm not sounding like pro choice.
what's the lowest penny?
I don't think they're really doing choice. I think they're pro money. I'm curious. The wording says the money green play 6 weeks.
Yeah.
With the provider status.
Yes.
That's the catch all that gets up.
Well, the amendment doesn't say anything about weeks.
So I go,
No, the amendment says nothing about weeks. Please make sure you get copies of the amendment, the language, all 56 words, the entire amendment's back there. It says nothing about time. It says viability, but it never defines viability. Listen to me. A child in the womb at 6 months in rural Belle Glade is far less viable than a child in the womb in Miami Children's Hospital.
Okay.
Viability can be adjusted. What are we going to do with viability? Right now it's about 21 weeks. What are we going to do when medical technology reaches 12 weeks?
Yeah.
And it follows the word viability is followed by the word or.
Or.
Which cancels the viability sign.
So when you're a lawyer and you study it and you see the word or after something, you go, oh man, well, I just put a strike through what comes with or. Yes, give it. Oh, what thing you say? I'm pro-choice? You said pro-abortion, pro-choice, Jaguar. I'm pro-choice. I want women to be able to choose where they go to school, what job they have, who they date, what church they go to, where they spend their money. Nobody gets the choice to kill another human being in any other instance, and it shouldn't be the choice now. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I think we ought to tell my niece that it's a woman's choice. You just go abstain or you not this that. Well, just kidding. But I'm just curious, how many states are there that already are caught up
Are caught up in what?
that they were passed?
I'm pretty sure they're 5 for 5, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 7 for 7 now. 7 states have put an amendment like this. They've succeeded in all 7 states. Here's the rub. All those other states, simple majority. Florida has to have 60%. But if you talk to Brian, we can't let this reach 50, and here's why. If it gets above 50% but doesn't reach 60, what that does is that makes our legislators less brave to put forth stronger restrictions. If this doesn't hit 50%, then we have the grounds to lobby our legislators, say this is the will of the people, you need to act on the will of the people. So let's shoot for 45 or 40 or even less. And believe me, if every Christian, if every church-going person, everyone in this state votes no, it won't reach 40%.
But the only way is if we educate that.
Gotta be prepared, gotta speak, can't wait till the opportunity arises, you gotta bring it up.
And so I just wanted to joke that I'm with that. We were taught that the way to do an election is things get people registered. You gotta be fun. Vegetarian rights.
Yep. Get people registered, get them up the issue. Reasonably, compassionately, and passionately. Keep the main thing, the unborn are real, whole, living, innocent, defenseless, individual human beings. It is morally wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Abortion is the intentional killing of an innocent human being. Abortion is morally wrong. If you stay on that and you equip yourself on how to get somebody who's going here and here and here and get them back to that main thing, they can't defeat the pro-life message. They can't argue against it. They're going to be forced to do one of two things. They're going to be forced to relent. By the way, mine don't change all at once, so don't be shocked if it doesn't happen. But they're going to do one of two things. They're going to change their minds. You're going to put a stone in their shoe. Then you're going to go away thinking, or they're going to understand the truth and still stick with their position. Because nobody wants to submit and surrender. But that shouldn't stop us. Anything else? Yes, dear.
I was trying to tell somebody that actually it was just yesterday, and I was this yesterday. You wanted to know on what side. That's the problem with the election thing when all the amendments are now. I did look briefly, I took the fight it, but that many of the amendments that are going to read on the next ballot. I didn't price the election for there.
If you
just look at the state of Florida to see what there's nothing. There's a lot of gibberish about the rules of 60%, etc. I don't know where. I mean, I would love to see it like giving a website. I mean, give it to people. Because people coming up and say, where do you find the information? How is the meeting? That's an accurate sense to me. Something's wrong.
I typed in Florida's Amendment 4 on abortion. And one of the sites was Ballotpedia. 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 That will give you the language, who supports it, how much money